Hello. Uh, okay, so this is my first video that I'm making. I might make more. I don't know yet, but let's just launch this. Who am I? I am Ansys on GitHub. You can see me here. You can see some of my code. This is a local server. I'm Ansys, a digital artisan, quietist, upstanding citizen of the deep web. I teach blog and design original media and web apps. And one more. Here's my website, transitiontech.ca, and yeah, you can browse that on your own time. Here we go. Alright, so this is what I'm going to be talking about today. JavaScript, Node.js, and some stuff with its HTTP API. So I'll get to that. Who are you? I don't know who you are, but if you're watching this, you're probably going to be best served if you are somebody who's interested in making a website. There's a million ways to make a website. A lot of people do it with WordPress, with PHP, with shared hosting. I'm going to teach you a little more of a hands-on way of doing it. So you're going to be best served by this video if you're actually interested in writing code. Maybe you don't know how to do it yet. Maybe you're already a programmer and you want to get into more web stuff, more JavaScript stuff. I don't know. But I'm going to try and do this from a basic enough level that if you're totally new to JavaScript, this will give you an overview of how you can use it to make a website. Yeah, here we go. Node. If you don't know, this is the command line. I'm using Arch Linux. You can do the same thing on a Mac. I think you can do all of this from Windows, though I've never tried it because Windows is atrocious. But yeah, this is called a REPL, a read, evaluate, print loop, REPL. So basically you enter in lines of code, they get evaluated immediately and executed, and so you can use this to write code interactively. So yeah, I'm going to show you a little bit about JavaScript. If you know how it works traditionally, it's the language that basically powers client-side web computing. So what that means is you have a browser, and your browser just shows pages. Pages have links, pages have text, they have content. And JavaScript is a programming language that's made to run inside of the browser and extend that basic functionality of just showing text with things like animation and actions and loading resources dynamically without having to reload the page. So it provides like all that extra functionality that makes the modern web what it is. In 2009, I believe, the engine that Chrome and Chromium use, which is called the V8 engine, that's what powers JavaScript inside that particular browser, those browsers. It was ported to be a standalone engine, so suddenly you could take JavaScript, which would only run in the browser. Before that, there were a couple other alternatives, but I'm not going to get into that. Suddenly you had access to run this natively, so you can write programs now since then which are in JavaScript, but they have access to your file system or to other things. So if you were using JavaScript before this, suddenly you would be able to take that knowledge and apply it to a wider domain. So given that JavaScript is kind of the de facto language of the web when it comes to client-side computing, being able to transfer that to other things like server-side computing, it works out really well, because now you don't have to learn a second language and use one client-side and one server-side. You can write the same code, and if you write it in a certain way, respecting the subsets of either platform, which they have in common, you can write code that will run on either platform. So it's really nice. It's efficient, both computationally. It's a pretty fast platform for a couple different reasons, and fast in terms of development time, because it is a scripting language. It has a lot of high-level functionality, and you can be really productive with it. So yeah, here we go. For people who have never used JavaScript, use this to declare a variable. Let's make a variable x, and it's equal to 5. Okay, so now we can reference it, x, and there it is, its value is 5. We can say x times x, and it's 25. We can say x is equal to x plus 2, and now x is 7. So JavaScript is a dynamic language. You can actually change the type of something, so x is equal to x plus pew plus x. There we go. And now it's a string, which is like text. So let's set it back to 5. So that's how you declare variables, and there's different types of variables. And one such type is a function. So you can make functions, and this is how you do it. So we'll call this function f. One of the notable things about JavaScript is that when you declare a variable, that's just a name, and you can assign anything to that name, anything that counts as, in JavaScript, it's called an object, and a function is an object the same as a number is an object, or some text is an object. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do. The same way that I assigned a string to what was previously a number, I can assign a function to that same identifier. So I declared previously a variable x, and I can say f is a function which returns x, and there it is. Here's f, and it returns that value. And as you can see, x isn't actually defined in the function. It's outside of the function, and the function references it and returns it. So if I change x, let's make x 9, and then I call f again, there it is. It's referencing the modified variable. So let's make another function, g, and what g does is it's a function, and you have to spell that right, and it takes y, which is a variable, an argument, and what it does is it sets x to the value of y and returns x. There we go. So let's call g with a value of 15, and now if I check x, the value of x is now 15. So other programming languages, not all programming languages, but there are many which wouldn't allow you to do this. JavaScript is really flexible. It was really just made to be easy and run on the web, and so it's not really considered too safe of a language, meaning you have a lot of flexibility, and many languages would just say, no, you can't do that, you're writing a risky program. JavaScript lets you do pretty much whatever you want. So what I just did there, reaching out of the function into the surrounding scope, that can be considered what's called a closure. It's not always recommended, but it lets you do some really powerful stuff, and I'll kind of get into that. Let's make one more function, and what does it do? It takes big F as an argument, and what is big F? Well, I'm putting brackets after it, so that means I'm calling a function. So what this function is going to do is it's going to take a function as its argument, and it's going to call it and return the value. So now if I call h and I pass our previously defined function f to it, it returns the value of that. And if I call g, h of g, it returns undefined. Why? Because we didn't pass value to be passed to g. It required that variable y. And so now x, if I check it, it'll be undefined because it just got overwritten by g. So that's one instance of sort of dangerous behavior. But what I'm illustrating is that functions can take numbers as arguments, they can take other functions as arguments. So you can do these wacky things where you use code to write more code for you. You can produce new functions with your functions. And so that opens up whole avenues of programming that are really amazing. Getting back on topic, we know what JavaScript is, we know what Node.js is, this server-side or native platform. What's an API? So an API is an application programming interface, and what that means is somebody's done some work, they've explored some subject, and they've produced a module which contains most of the functionality that you're going to need for some specific type of application. So like you can do graphics, you can do audio with JavaScript now, you can do a ton of things, and it's all kind of bundled into these things, these APIs. So you can download them, install them, and suddenly be able to use those functions. As well, there's a bunch of functions which are built in, and we can see what's built into JavaScript here, and there's quite a few. And you can see HTTPS, there it is. You have basically a lot of functionality that's just in JavaScript to begin with. So today we're going to be exploring the HTTP API. So I can go HTTP dot, and there's all the functions that are bundled into it. And you can see this dot symbol operator. Basically what that does is that's for variable access. So HTTP, like anything else, is an object, a variable, and you can reference the functions which are inside of it by using this dot. If you want to create a server, you can see, you should be able to see it, there it is, no, create client, create server, right here. If you want to create a server, you use that function. So create server, bracket, and that's just a regular function. And this is why I was showing you how you can pass functions to functions. This is how you create a server. You pass it a function which takes a couple arguments, specifically a request and a response. It takes 2 arguments. And whenever somebody browses to your server, once you've launched it, that server calls that function, and it uses that function to determine what it's supposed to do. So in a lot of other server frameworks, what you do is you create scripts that get loaded by another server, or you have content that just gets served. There's like static file servers like Apache or Nginx. In JavaScript, what you do is you write your server from scratch, and you have all your functionality right there. All your logic that determines what it does. And I like that because it sort of frees you up from having these really complicated and inflexible configuration files with just a ton of variables that you have to know how it works, and it's almost like it's a machine that it has these knobs and stuff, and you have to know what all those knobs do, and you can't just make new knobs necessarily. So I like this way of doing it. So we're going to make a function, and like I said, it takes a request and a response. And what does it do with that? Let's make it log to the console. This is a standard function. The requested URL, and there it is. And it's going to end the response. And what is it going to send? It's going to send some text, pew pew pew. And we use the curly brace to close the function. And remember, we're passing that function to another function, so we need to close the function call. And there it is. This is the value that's returned by the function createServer. And you can see some of the stats about the server. This is one of the quirks of using JavaScript at the REPL like this. You can retroactively, if you forgot to declare a variable to capture the value which was returned from the previous function, you can use this symbol, the underscore, and what that does is it references the previously returned value. So if you forget, you can always capture it again after the fact and assign it to something. So there it is. And if I call server, now that name is bound to the previous value. So now I just say server listen, and I tell it what port to listen to. If you multiply, yeah, a bit of an aside, what is it, 2 to the 16th? No? 2 to the, oh, what's happening here? I don't know. Okay, so you can take my word on this. Computers, modern computers, have 65,535 ports that they can listen on, and basically what your server is going to do is it's going to listen on one of those. Web servers normally listen on port 80 because that's the default port that a browser looks on to see if there's content, but you can bind to anything, and for this we're going to tell our server to listen on port 8083. So there it is, it's listening on port 8083, and we can go into our browser, and this is Blackbox is my local domain, my host name. You can set that to 127.0.0.1. That's a local address, so this won't be accessible via the internet. It's just sitting on your computer, so browse to 8083, and there it is. You can see the response, and if we go back into the terminal, you can see what was requested. So first off, you can see there's a slash, and that's the most basic domain. and it also requested favicon twice. So what's a favicon? If we go to GitHub, you can see this little picture here. I have this ANSYS symbol. So that's just the icon for your website, and browsers ask for that whether you tell them to or not. Unless you tell them a different image to look for, they're gonna look for that. So there's a couple things that happen implicitly that browsers just do, and you kind of have to learn what those things are. But the gist of this is that now we can browse to anything, any URL at all, and it's going to log those URLs here because we told it to, right? If we go up, we said request URL and send the response. So that's a pretty useless server. It does one thing, and yeah, it's not very flexible. I don't know, you could launch it quickly and fulfill one task, but you probably want, if you're making a website, you want something that can do more than that. So let's get into that. I'm going to close this loop, and I'm going to show you how I do things. Yeah, so here we go. Next file. Alright, so this is a bit of an extension of what I just did. So there's HTTP. This is actually pretty much the same server, but with a little bit more to it, and I'm gonna build on this. So when you launch a server from the read, evaluate, print loop, you don't have to do this statement. You don't have to assign HTTP this value, which is returned from the require statement. Okay, so this is what's called the require statement. So what it does is it loads APIs and returns them, and this assigns it into the variable HTTP. So the read, evaluate, print loop does that for you automatically when you load it for a couple standard APIs, but this is a script, and you kind of have to do it yourself because you don't want every script to load every API. It's just kind of handy to have it there in the loop when you're programming on the fly. So I've saved that as plain mon, and what is it bound to? Port 8080. So we can go to black box 8080, and there we go. We see the same thing, and this one doesn't print the log statement. So let's just step through what's happening here. I added in quite a bit more. It's an expanded version of the same server, and I'm going to show you why. So here's that function, which you should recognize. It sends pew pew pew. Here we're telling it what port to listen to. There's our listen statement, and there's a little bit more to it. You can tell your server to listen to different addresses, and you can give it a function which will be called when it listens. So here's it telling you what address and port it's running on, and there you can see that statement at the log. Basically, so like I said, the problem was that our previous server wasn't very flexible. This is a really tiny way of implementing a plugin architecture. So servers have, they can have what's called a route or root, depending on where you live, and Basically what the server does is when a request comes in, it tries one function, and if that function is unsuccessful for whatever reason, that function calls the next function. So you have a stack of functions, and there's a fall through behavior. So it doesn't work on the first one, it tries the second one, and your stack can be as large as you want. So you can just keep on pushing more functionality to that stack, and whatever's at the top will take priority, but otherwise it sort of cycles through. So yeah, this function, this is our stack, it's an array, and this is a function which creates routes. So you give it a pattern in the form of a regular expression, which is this. This is a regular expression that just tells it to match against anything at all. If you don't know, a regular expression is a way of specifying what a pattern of characters will look like. So you can say it must include these specific characters. So you can say it can include this or any one of these followed by this. It's a really advanced way of producing what would otherwise be really complicated. It produces an algorithm to check for that pattern. So it's definitely something worth knowing. And then this function takes our stack and it reduces it into a single function instead of an array of functions. And that's necessary because create server only accepts a single function. You need to compress your stack into one thing. So that's what this code does. There are other frameworks out there. One is Express.js, that's the most notable one, and it basically does this, but it includes a lot more code, and I did it this way just because I like to be able to see everything that's happening. And with Express, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of like magical things that happen sort of beneath the hood that you can't really see, and if you want to understand what's happening, you have to dig through a lot of code. They have a lot of programmers working on it, and it is a great framework. I just wanted to dig into what's actually happening. So here it is. And yeah, so that's running. Now the thing about this is that we only have one route, and it only does one thing. It sends pew pew pew. So what if we want a logger? So we can add a function, and again there's a regular expression which will match against anything, and it takes a request and a response. And if you're adding routes to the top of the server, you also need to pass in this other variable next, and what that does is it refers to the next function in line in your stack. So that's how you tell your server to fall through. So we're going to say console log rec.url and call next, and we pass the request and the response on to the next function, and we close it and save our file, and we restart our server. And now when we do that, now we see this. We see the URL that was requested. And we can just keep on adding more functions. So let's say we want to have a home page, so something that only loads if you browse to the root URL. This symbol, the caret, and this, the cache mark, that just specifies that you want the beginning and the end of the regular expression, of the string to match, and this is what's inside. So you're saying I only want this exact character, which is the slash. So when somebody browses to that, they're going to see what we send them in this function. We're going to say res and welcome to my webserver, and we're going to end it there. So now we can restart, and boom, welcome to my webserver, whereas browse to anything else, and it sends this other string. So we can change that. Usually if a pattern isn't matched, you send a 404. So we do that, and oh, now it 404s, right? So now we have a more complicated web server, yeah, you can just keep on adding functionality to that. You can keep on adding these little functions, and as you can see, they're 3 lines each. They can be arbitrarily complex, but you can just keep on adding them. And I guess the other thing to point out is that the same way that you loaded HTTP, you can load other functions. So you don't need to write each of these functions inline in the server. You can require them. You can install other APIs, and you can just plug them into this. This is actually, this file right here is the basis for my own framework. Like I said, I call it Unmon, and that's named after this guy. Oh, there he is, once it loads. So he's sort of a big figure in the Zen tradition, famous monk, and he's known for saying, oh, where is it? Said Amun to his disciples, however wonderful a thing is, it may be that it is better not to have it at all. So that really embodied my philosophy of web development, that I wanted to understand everything that was happening. And so, yeah, I named it after him. And basically what it is it's this really minimal framework and a set of plugins like this. So it comes with the basics that you need to launch a website, and my website actually runs on it, all my websites. So this one, and you can see the code for that right here on GitHub in the lib folder. Here's a bunch of plugins. So I'm going to wrap this up, and that's enough to get you started. And what if you go to my website, I have this JavaScript. I have a bunch of tutorials for JavaScript, basic JavaScript, scoping, lambdas, and some more advanced stuff, lazy evaluation. And yeah, I write about JavaScript a lot. But yeah, it's all in here. I'm gonna make another video that will look at each of these plugins in more depth and show you sort of how you can take their really basic functionality, and by composing them into a server using Amon, you can get some pretty fancy behavior. So that's that, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.